Hello and welcome everyone to the CFS Health Recovery Podcast. I am your host, Toby Morrison, and in today's episode, we are so lucky to have a past member in Michelle McDonald come on for a success interview. Now, if you're someone who is going through chronic fatigue syndrome or any other chronic illness that you are struggling to get back into living and life, this podcast is for you. Especially if you're a mum, if you've got kids, if you're basically losing your entire identity in life and then not knowing what to do, this episode is for you. We really go deep into boundaries. We really go deep into knowing what you need, and we go into the psychology of recovery. Hello and welcome everyone. My name is Toby Morrison from CFS Health. And on the other end of the video screen is Michelle McDonald. Hello.
Hi.
Hey, super stoked to have you here. Today we're talking about chronic fatigue syndrome recovery. And we have this really special guest with us today. And Michelle's story is pretty amazing and it had lots of twists and turns, and she's a mum. She's freaking amazing at what she does in terms of work. She's super passionate about it, but it wasn't always that easy. In fact, it was really hard. And when I first met Michelle, when she joined the program, you were in a pretty dark place. And so I'd love to share your journey with everyone who's listening, because I think it's so powerful and profound. And I just kind of can't wait to share your story. It's going to be amazing. So thanks for coming in. Really appreciate it.
You're welcome.
If we can wind back the clock, before we even met, before you kind of reached out and applied for the program and all that jazz, where were you at with your life? What had happened to Michelle at that point?
Yeah, so I think when I first started to have those thoughts of like, something is not right with me and I don't know what it is, was really after the birth of my daughter. So that was 2019 in March. And it is that confusing thing because it's such a new part of life and so many body changes that my brain would start to be like, oh, this is normal. This is just a part of that adjustment process. But yeah, it was just that niggling whisper of like, something's not right. So I think it took me, after giving birth, it took me 10 months to finally go, I should probably see a counselor or psychologist. And then it took me another 1.5 years before I was like, okay, well, something's not right with my body, because depression, anxiety, sleeping for 10 hours, needing to nap in the day, just feeling so tired all the time. So then I finally got around to seeing the GP. It was good that she was like, hey, you've got an autoimmune disease. So that was one piece of the puzzle that made me go, okay, it's not in my head. Something is going on in my body. But then, of course, it's like, you've got an autoimmune disease. Here's a couple of pills and on your way. And things didn't really seem to change. I got some supplements and it helped a little, but definitely the depression, the sleep, the feeling tired, not being able to concentrate, having what they refer to as that brain fog, where I'm just mid-sentence and then completely forget what I was saying. Just feel like you're somehow floating in the universe. Like, where am I?
Totally. So scary as well. And I want to pre-frame this by saying, what were you like before you had your baby? Because you're a pretty active person.
So before my child, I would say I was an elite performer in musical theatre. And, we do 8 shows a week. The shows go for like 3 hours, very high energy.
I had no idea. I didn't know you did that. That's amazing. And so you're like a full high achiever. You sound like the non-stop type of person, living life to the fullest.
Oh, yeah. Like, how perfect is that kind of performing career for a push and crash? I'm going hardcore, 3 hours, nonstop. You get this big applause at the end of the night, which is so like, feed my ego and like approve me. And then go home, maybe can't sleep, have a few wines, crash, wake up groggy, but you have to do a show by 5 o'clock, 7 o'clock, and then you go again. Like, perfect push and crash.
Especially if you're not looking after yourself, and, knowledge is power, but then applying that knowledge is even more powerful. And if you don't know how to feed yourself, be in tune with your body, recondition your body properly, all these things that you've learned obviously now, it's an easy way to kind of not feel too great. It's really cool to paint the picture
Yeah.
just for other people watching. It's not like you were just a couch potato who did nothing. And we never really have met anyone through the program, and we're talking thousands of people over the last decade, ever met a lazy person join this program. I don't think chronic fatigue syndrome affects lazy people, actually. What was it like for you when you've gone from cabarets and Chicago's and performing to then having a baby, probably feeling the pressure of like you should be really happy right now, and then physiologically not being able to function? What were some of the thought processes that were going on at that time? And especially chronic fatigue syndrome, the awareness is getting better now, but even 3-4 years ago, it was still pretty rough. Like, here's some pills, good luck.
Totally. And I actually still don't really know, apart from obviously my husband who really saw the highs and lows. I still don't know if like some of my closest friends or my workplaces really understand the kind of state I was in during those couple of years and months. And I think that's because of this awareness of, people just think, oh, chronic fatigue, or you feel a bit tired, have a coffee and keep going or something. Oh gosh, it's way more emotionally, spiritually, physically, mentally complicated than that.
Much more complicated. And so it's a very much a physiological experience. However, it does affect you emotionally because it's totally ruined your identity.
If I take it back to myself, I have this whole story from childhood. If I can be really good at dancing, then my parents will love me, friends will like me. I did find joy in dancing, but that's one layer. Then if I can't do it anymore and all of a sudden my brain wants to tell me, you're going to get kicked out of the tribe. Nobody is going to like you or respect you or be there for you if you don't do this one thing that I've made up in my head. And you just feel like you're dying.
Pressure. I can just imagine backpacks of rocks just like layered on top of you of like that pressure. So yeah, I guess the question was like, in those darkest moments, did you feel hopeless? Did you think it was possible for you? Were you one of those people that was like, shit, there's nothing I can do? Or are you someone who's just like, no, I'm going to find a way. It's just a matter of finding what it is that's going to help me?
Yeah, I think it was both. I absolutely felt hopeless and confused and lost. But, and this is not a comment on antidepressants or anti-anxiety medications, because if somebody out there needs to take them, absolutely take them. But when my friends and family started to say to me, maybe you should look at going on medication, some deep inner voice was like, no, there's something you need to work through here. There's some emotional, mental block, and just taking meds, because I was already taking meds for autoimmune and taking my supplements, I just kind of knew there was stuff for me to break down and break through. Yeah.
So powerful. Oh my God, got chills down my spine, because imagine if you did just keep going on that path of, taking the pills for the sake of taking the pills and ignoring that message. Then for sure, antidepressants and other medications can be super helpful for a bunch of people. And there might be a message in the mess too that could be picked up and potentially utilized, which you did. And I can't wait to talk about it today. What was your biggest challenge before joining the program?
My biggest challenge was actually just to speak out what I needed. I felt trapped and like I didn't have an option of doing things differently. Obviously, this is all just in my brain telling me these things. So even though you can hear those whispers to yourself of like, whatever, even if it was something small, because remember, I was a new mum, even if it was like, I just want to go have a cup of tea by myself. But then the other part of my brain being like, you can't do that. That's not allowed. That's not what a mum does. All the reasons why you can't do the thing that your body actually wants to do. And I teach yoga, so I feel like my throat chakra was just locked. And then that energy just built up inside my body, and then obviously it needs to come out in other ways. But the biggest challenge was just not being able to actually stand in my confidence of being like, this is what I need, and nothing else really matters,
Really, it's coming back to boundaries. What you're saying here is like, I had no idea how to express myself and set boundaries for myself and also for people around me. Before you learned the tools to do that, how did that actually feel emotionally when you said you felt trapped?
Yeah, it felt like I was in prison. It literally felt I was in my own prison. There's no self-expression, no freedom. And that's when I got really sad because I felt trapped. Again, let's add another layer to that cake. I was feeling guilty for feeling sad because I'm a new mom. I have a great husband. I have a great house. And why do I feel this sad? You know, so there's guilt on top of that.
Put your hand up right now if you're listening to this and you're resonating. You're like probably nodding like, oh, go, yeah. I mean, so true. The guilt on top of the sadness is just horrible and so isolating because people don't really get it, you know, like even your loved ones, they don't really get it. And it's like, you don't know who to turn to or what to do. Appreciate you sharing. What changed after joining the program? How did you even find CFS Health? Was it on YouTube or?
It was just a twist of fate that I think I just typed into podcast chronic fatigue and you had talked on another podcast. And I listened to you and I was just like, yes, there are so many times in my life where I just, you know, find this alignment with people. And I think I said that to you in one of the calls. I appreciated your authenticity and you just seem like a good guy. Like I don't know you that well, but you just seem like a good, authentic person. And I love authentic people in my life. I'm not here for the sort of jazz hands, even though that was the world I came from. I'll just add to that as well, because this came to mind, which I thought was really interesting, because I was seeing a psychologist at the time. But how funny is this? I remember sitting in the psychologist sessions, feeling guilty about the things that I would tell the psychologist. So then I would start to not tell the psychologist the full story. Yeah. So of course I couldn't really get to the problem. Well, not the problem, but, you know, couldn't really unwind everything. But joining the course, I think because of your authenticity and your sharing and the way that everybody does lift each other up and truly shares, and you can tell us the worst thing ever and we're just like, that is fine. I felt then like I could really start to speak.
We get
and that is just priceless to me.
Yeah, amazing. Thanks for sharing that. So you join this program, you don't even know what it's really about probably. You've just like, this feels good. It's my next step. I need a holistic approach. And you obviously felt like you were fully understood straight away, which is something that's really important to us, is that we get you. What changed?
I mean, so many tiny little things, but generally I always refer back to the guilt workshop because in that workshop, I really got that I was putting everybody else before myself. I'm good with visualization. It really made me visualize and connect back to like my 5-year-old self. And I love her so much. And I was like, how can I do this to her? She needs to be held by me, you know? So that was such a huge turning point. And the second thing in that workshop was, which is so valuable, and I still use it now, is the voices in my head, those voices of guilt or anything, that question of like, is this my voice or is this my childhood teacher or my mom or my dad? Whose belief is that? Who told me that to be a good mom, I can't have a cup of tea by myself? Was that me? Is that what I believe? Well, actually, no. And once I started to unpack whose voices were in my head, oh my God, then I could truly figure out what I believed and what I stood for my life. You know?
Truth, yeah. Becoming the true you and owning it. Yeah, I see a lot of pressure from, it's unintended, but it's family pressure of like, you should do this, you should do that. When you're older, you should be this. This is how a good girl acts and behaves.
Oh yeah, that term I do not use with my daughter.
Which is fantastic. I mean, how amazing, how lucky for your daughter to have a mum like you now, you know, through what you've been through. So much wisdom. Being a mum and really putting yourself first is pretty hard. And I'm not a mum. I actually can't really say that I really truly get it, but God, I can only imagine how hard it would be. And I remember probably 3 to 4 months inside the program for you, there was a pivotal moment where you were trying really hard at recovery. You were really dedicated, but you also felt trapped. It was like, I've got this beautiful daughter, but I'm also like, it's hindering my recovery because I can't fully focus on me. It's either being a mum or not being a mum and getting better. Like that was kind of the thought process. kind of black and white, but
That's a perfect way to put it. Absolutely. Yeah. And then you coached me. I don't even know exactly what you said, but you made me realize that she was not the barrier. She was not the problem. She was not the thing in my way. And I was like, what? But if I didn't have her, then I could rest more. If I didn't have to look after my daughter, then I could go to yoga more. And if I didn't have her, I'd have, well, all these things. If I didn't have her, if I didn't have these responsibilities, then I'd be better. And how great that you made me realize that that is just not true. Because one, hopefully I'll always have her, so she's not going away, And two, it's kind of like, well, that was just an excuse keeping me trapped. I was just putting everything on some external person and situation, probably to be like in a little bit of that victim mode. I'm mom, you don't understand. When you made me really see that it wasn't her, oh wow, that was like cameras back on me. Like, okay, well now I've got to go deep, because if it's not her, it's me.
It was an amazing session. For you at that moment, it was so pivotal, because I think, and most mums do this, they're like, in order to get better, I need to put myself first. That's what everyone thinks. But, I say, well, maybe don't put yourself first, but at least put yourself equal, because that's doable. But when you've got a kid, I don't know how doable first is all the time, but equal, it's possible, right? Really what we're talking about here is a story. On the call, I was like, well, how's that working out for you, believing that she's in the way? Because you're probably never going to get better if you buy into that the rest of your life, because there's always a reason why you can't. And so again, it's about controlling our controllables. What can we control? And I feel like it was like a penny dropped in a moment for you that day, and there was lots of tears, and it was a hard call for you. I remember it was a really tough call, but it was so special because it was almost like the fog cleared and you looked different on the call. Like the energy came back into your face and your life, and it was like, wow, she's actually a blessing. She's not in the way. She's helping me get on the way. And it was almost like this immediate shift inside that program that was just like, wow, okay, cool. And then you started to really click into gear in terms of like owning your day, supporting your daughter, but also supporting yourself throughout each and every day.
Yeah, well, I think it gave me that next step of, well, now I feel free to place boundaries in place with my daughter, or just say what I needed. It freed me up.
I feel like everyone loves baseline, but people who aren't in the program, they're like, oh, I just need to get my baseline right and all that. What are some tips around that for being a mum? Because I think it's pretty tough. I think the first one, you've already said it, which is totally okay to put yourself equal and start expressing yourself and asking for what you need. Would that be number one?
Yes, that. But I think almost the step before that is those things from the guilt workshop of like breaking down your story and your beliefs of what our mum, quotation marks, should do and should look like. They're just in your mind for such a long time. You forget to stop and examine, oh, hang on, I have this whole deep idea of what I should be doing as a mum. So definitely breaking that down, because you know what I've learned? Gosh, literally every parent is so different. One parent is like, let's just say, oh, stressed out if they don't have the perfect lunchbox. Me, I don't really care what their lunchbox looks like, whatever. So everyone has these weird different standards in their head to do with how a parent or mum or father should act. And that's a lot of pressure. I didn't understand in my brain. I was like, why can't I do this? Why am I struggling to be a stay-at-home mom? Like, here are some of these stories in my head. Doesn't this come naturally to everyone? I thought I'd be good at this because my mom was good at this. I don't know. My husband seems like he'd be better at staying home than me. Why is it me? Is it because I'm a female? Like, oh my gosh, I could just go on forever about all the stories in my brain that were not helpful. And that's your question. Is it helpful? No, it's not helpful.
How's it serving you? And for all the guys who maybe aren't mums listening as well, it's like, how is the belief that you're holding right now serving you? There's a story that you're telling yourself. Is it helping or hindering?
Yeah, and that's what I learned too as well, about how when you got me to see that it's not my daughter or being a parent that's the issue, then you do start to see like, oh yeah, these things come up for everybody. So is it that you're telling yourself to be the best, whatever, that you have to be at work at 9 o'clock. Or it's just all those stories of pressure, trying to get it right.
Well,
there is no right.
Sally Benyon, one of our past members as well, I think you might have seen her for a little while. She was in the program and she did a success interview as well. And if you haven't watched it, go find it on YouTube somewhere. Program members, you guys know where it is in the hub. The pressure of a mum, she always felt like she had to be on call. She had to be the helper for everyone. And that was blocking her so much in her recovery. And we flipped it one day, again, through a coaching call. And I was like, why don't you let your children know that you're here for them if they need you? But I don't even know if your kids are actually asking for help. I think you're just trying to do it as a job role that you believe you need to do it. Exactly what you're saying. And she's like, oh my God, you're right. Like, they actually don't even ask for help. And they don't even appreciate me when I try and help because they're not actually asking for my help. And it's like, holy shit. And now she's got this awesome relationship with her kids where it's just like, hey, I'm here for you if you need me. You just let me know when that is. And then there's an open conversation versus like chasing the tail. Is there anything else you want to share through your journey through the program on the holistic approach, movement-wise, nutrition-wise, rest-wise? Is there anything that kind of would be helpful to share?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think, we've talked a lot about the mental side and the stories in our head, but at the very same time, all of those practical tips, no screen time right before bed, and I put white noise on to sleep. I ate every 2 to 3 hours, a mix of protein and carbs, like all of those practical things really, really did help. They just lifted, they held me while then I could sort out what was in my head. And I bought a pair of those blue light blocking glasses of the orange. If I take a FaceTime call or something at nighttime, my friend's always like, cool glasses, man. So definitely all those aspects played a huge role. And it was, even though I was only in the course for just over 6 months, maybe 7 months, even to where I am now, because that was only a year ago, it is still baby steps. It's amazing to look back over the year and think, okay, literally a year ago right now, gosh, I'd be asleep right now during the day. And, it didn't happen overnight. It was really, really slow, steady changes. But I think it was really useful for me at the time about just starting with something small. That my first boundary with my daughter was that when I was sitting down to have a cup of tea, that I was not getting up until I finished the cup of tea. And I still do that. And it is gold. It is gold. So just make myself like 10 cups of tea. So no, And she knows. There's no like fight or but mom or whatever. She's like, mom's having a cup of tea. And that was the perfect small boundary to start with. So I think that was really good.
I love that. Micro changes lead to macro changes. So tell us, where are you at now? You're pretty passionate about Pilates, which I am too. I love Joseph Pilates. His story is just so inspirational. But tell us a day in the life of Michelle now.
Oh, you've picked an interesting read.
Not this way, but this general, like you're a Pilates coach, is that right? Like you'd run group training sessions?
Yeah, so at the moment I teach yoga and I teach Pilates both in a group setting, so where you might have like 20 people on the mat or 10 people on the reformer, and then I also work in a small group setting where you have 4 people at once and they have individual goals that you're helping them achieve.
Where do you see yourself, in the future?
Yeah, I have no idea. I just know that it feels like I'm on the precipice. This whole last year with you, it's just been one layer and one layer. And it's funny again how my brain, for some reason, like, oh, it's a new year, it's 2023. I'm done with all that recovery or whatever. I'm just going to cruise. And then life comes at you and you're like, oh, I've still got more work on myself to do.
Well, it never stops, right? And this is what we say in Lifestyle Integration is like, life is hard. Recovery is hard, but not recovering's harder because there's suffering on top of suffering. Whereas now you're just experiencing life stuff and it's like, oh, okay, is this really what I want to be doing? Maybe it's not. Maybe it's something different.
Yeah. And also, I guess another really good point, which I find is just so interesting, was when I was in the course, everything that I was wanting to work through was to get myself to be back as the person I was beforehand. But as I'm learning now, one, that's not who I am anymore because I know so many more things. And two, that's just going to wind me back up in the same place. And it's so funny, all of that climbing the imaginary ladder in the musical theatre world. Well, now I'm just doing that in the Pilates world. And it's not working. And I'm going to need to have a little rethink and go back to some of those basics. People in the course now, or if people are thinking about joining the course, you come out a whole new person just for the better. I thought I wanted to go back to the Michelle I was before, but I don't want to go back there. I'm a whole new creation now, and it's so much better. Yeah. I just thank you so much. I think to myself, the story you tell when people were telling you, what are you thinking, this course, it'll never work and all that. And I just go, oh, thank you so much, Toby, to that person who intuitively knew that you were going to help so many people.
I told you not to make me cry on this. I said, do your best not to make me cry. Now you're making me tear up.
Everything you created was a lifesaver for me, and I will be forever grateful.
It's my pleasure. I knew exactly what I needed back then, and I just thought of people like you many years ahead of time and just thought, got to make sure you don't have to go through what I went through. It was total hell. So it's so good that you're doing this, and it's music to my ears. I feel like you're so on track, even though that career-wise things might be moving and changing. You're so in tune, you know what I mean? And that's what makes a difference. And it's not about fighting for the old, it's about building the new. And when you finally get that and the penny drops, momentum happens and you can start to move forwards. But until that happens, you're really going to just hit your head against a brick wall. Bang, bang. It's out of alignment. It's not who you are anymore. And you need to build it new, what you truly want. So pumped for you. A couple of things before we round up this chat. First thing, if there's someone watching this and they've been watching a crap load of YouTube videos and they're like, consuming, they're like, I want to join, but I'm so nervous if I join. What if it doesn't work? What if I fail at the program? All these types of things. Is it worth it? What would you say to them?
It's 100% worth it. And it's hands down, pick up the phone, write the email. But when I was thinking about joining, that was actually my main concern. What I was saying to myself in my head was, what if, Michelle, you do another course, you spend all this money that your family need and spend all this money and nothing changes? Saying that to myself was disrespectful and kind of just a bit harsh. And again, just adding guilt. Like, if you do this course and you don't fix yourself, then you're not worthy and you wasted everyone's time and money. And again, there's just so much pressure on myself. So I guess I say to those people, just check in with what your beliefs are about doing the course. Notice if there's any guilt or pressure. If there is, that's probably not true, and give yourself the chance to explore. I think only good could come of it.
I had a mum once join years ago, and this is so long ago, like almost over a decade ago. She ummed and ahed for like 3 years. And anyway, she did the program. About a year and a half later, she progressively got better. She recovered, and she wrote a testimonial. And she said, when I joined the program, I was so questioning it. Oh, should I? Shouldn't I? It's a lot of money. Maybe it's not that much. Is it worth it? All these things. And then she asked a simple question. If my daughter was going through this right now, what would I do? And she was like, I would have paid for it 5 days ago. And so she joined on the spot. And she said, thank God she did. But, she's like, what am I teaching my daughter? Provided it's the right thing, then it's in alignment. For some people, it won't be. And that's okay too. It's a fascinating process that we go through when we're investing in things. We all go through it.
And upon reflection for me as well, financially, it was honestly priceless. I'd pay that fee 1,000 times over. Absolutely priceless for me and my life and my family, everything. Yep.
There's like so many gold nuggets through here. My mind says like boundaries, expression, consistency, showing up for yourself. Like, how committed are you actually? All these things. For the people who are suffering right now, mums, dads, teenagers, athletes, academics, everyone, what would you like to share with them as we leave this conversation?
Good question. I just acknowledge them. I want to acknowledge everything you're feeling. It is real. It feels real to you. And I hear that and I acknowledge that. And I never would want those people to think that it's their fault to feel that way, or that it's all in their head, like you mentioned. But I just would tell them that, I acknowledge everything, mentally, spiritually, physically. We hear you. Yeah.
Wow. Thank you so much for sharing that. Can feel everyone at home just feeling so much more at ease because it's what you just said is very true. Thank you so much for doing this. I really appreciate you, and just amazing how you showed up throughout the period of working with us. Even on the hardest days, you still showed up, and you reached out for help and you did the work and you got the reward because of that. So yeah, don't underestimate all that work that you did as well. It's unbelievable. Yeah, great to witness.
Thank you.
We'll stay in touch.
Thank
we might have
you.
to do a round 2 at some stage as well.
Okay, cool. Yeah, see where I am this time next year.
Yeah, exactly. Thanks heaps, Michelle.
You're welcome.
See ya.